Yeah, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Boulder. I just want to let you know that after the service, we always have coffee, tea, and refreshments to your left in Fellowship Hall. And if you'd like a copy of the service on DVD or CD, we have that available in our beautiful Metaphysical bookstore. But right now, we'd like to have you stand up and really just feel Spirit in this space. Let's just have this holy moment together to get this service started right, okay? Here we go. Open my eyes, oh divine one. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to feel you. I want to feel through my heart overflowing, source of our life, as we sing holy, holy, holy. Open my eyes, oh divine one, open the eyes of my heart. I want to I want to feel you. Open my eyes, oh divine one. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to feel you. I want to feel you holding me up, shining through my heart overflowing, source of our life, as we sing holy, 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 holy. I want to feel you. You are holy. Here we go. Holy, 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 holy. I want to feel you.
Let's all sing. Sing it to pray twice.
Holy, 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 holy. This place is holy. This people are holy.
One more time.
You are holy, holy, holy. Oh, you're holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to feel you.
Beautiful singing. Feeling that presence, feeling that source, feeling that light. We've definitely called that spirit of love into this space right here and now. And our hearts are full, and we are grateful.
Amen. All right, while you're standing, let's just thank God for this beautiful moment that we just had, this holy space that we're in. Thank you all for being here. I know we have a few announcements to get to. Mike, if you'd like to come up, we can.
Good morning, everyone.
Great.
Just a few real quick announcements today. Coming up here, we have our all-church camping trip up here. It's about an hour and 15 minutes north of here at the Poudre River. We've done this before, and it was a fantastic time. This is trips from to get an idea of what this place looks like. It's a big, wide open area with lots of shade and lots of room. It's only $8 per day per person for 3 nights starting next Sunday evening. If you'd like to get a spot to come hang out with us here, please sign up over here in the bookstore. We have hiking, fishing. Every morning we do meditations and yoga. One day just up the road is a beautiful Shambhala center up there that we go up to and visit with probably the best food of the whole trip. It's a great time. We sit around every night around a fire telling stories, singing tunes, and eating food and just having a great time. It's dog friendly. There's showers there. There's if you need indoor accommodation, you can. It's RV. It's perfect if you have an RV that you'd like to bring along as well. The bathrooms are all nice and clean at this place. It's a well taken care of campground. We have a great time. So if you'd like to come join us all, please do, and please sign up over here because spaces are limited. But also coming up, August 26th that's a Sunday. That is our Welcome Back Sunday. And that's where we kind of invite everyone to come back from all their summer adventures and their summer vacations. And it's when all our Sunday school stuff downstairs resumes and starts back up. So it's a big day, so come out for that. It's also a great day to bring someone who's never been here before. If you have a friend or a relative that you've always wanted to show this place to, that's a great day to do it. And we'll have a bouncy castle, and we'll follow our second service with a big potluck. So think of a dish you'd like to bring for that. And other than that, I would like to invite our good friend Ottawa out here to get things started off with a prayer.
Holy, 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 I wanna feel you. This prayer is the Lord's Prayer, one possible new translation from the Aramaic. O Bertha, Father, Mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us. Make it useful. Create your reign of unity now. Your one desire then acts with ours. As in all light, so in all forms. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us. As we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. From you is born all ruling will, the power and the life to do, the song that beautifies all. From age to age, it renews. Truly, power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all my actions grow. Amen.
The opportunity to listen to the Fourth World Band. I've had the opportunity to sing with them a few times, and their music's really inspired by the sounds of nature and sacred rhythms. So just sit back and relax and enjoy the Fourth World Band.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be, during this first song, playing an Anasazi flute, and this is, I guess, a very spiritual instrument that the ancients here in this area, Kokopelli, would have used in a ceremony. And I would say when playing this, I like to think of it that my breath represents life, and I'm blowing against this edge, which represents the present moment. The flute itself represents the body. What happens when I blow against the edge, the air gets split and it creates a vibration. And that vibration, half of it goes into this chamber, which makes the music. The other half goes out into silence. So if I would say, while I'm breathing into this instrument, it will help you become aware of your own breath and the present moment. We'll begin. Thanks.
morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here. I wanted to start my sermon with that beautiful cathedral bells, which is from a church that I just visited last week in Ireland. And I'll be speaking on this mystical and magical experience that our family went on together and share some of the wonderful experiences that we had, and really confirming the hero's journey that we've been on, as pastors of this church for many, many years. If you're new to us, my name is Syntysche. I'm a minister here with my brother Shad and my father Jack, and we alternate services. And so I'm the one that got to share the service, but actually Shad wasn't with us on the trip. It was just my mom and dad and my husband and I, and we actually got to leave the kids behind and really have a children's, adventure. When you don't have kids, you become kids. You don't have to be looking after anyone but yourself. So you kind of get a little radical and push that edge and have, a lot of fun. But I wanted to bring up the church bells because it didn't matter what town we went into in Ireland, if it was big or it was small. Every single one of the little towns, even if there's like one little restaurant and just a few stores, there's always a big cathedral in every single town. And these bells are a constant that are playing everywhere you go, and you hear them in the middle of the night, and you hear them all day. And they are designed to call us to remember our connection with God. And, back in the early days of, early Christianity, they were really actually calling us to say the Lord's Prayer. So every time those bells go off, we're supposed to be reciting the Lord's Prayer. And, if you read the Lord's Prayer in Unity, we are considered New Thought Christianity. So we really see God as in and through us instead of a separate God in the sky that we can dictate and change and move around and will protect us when we need them to. And, it's really more of a responsibility path where we enliven, we use the ether to bring into that spiritual magic into our consciousness through prayer and meditation, and through practice of yoga and whatever things that connect us to that greater potential, that greater love we call God. But I thought about how in the middle of the night last night, I woke up at 3 in the morning, which I do many times before I do a service. They say that's kind of it's a spiritual hour, when there's something that's calling our attention, the universe kind of wakes us up at that time. We're the veil between the spiritual realm or the life after death realm is very thin, and we can connect and access the supernatural, the super wonderful experience with the Creator, And so in the middle of the night, I was thinking about the Lord's Prayer, and I was going to recite it off of the idea of these bells. And what is it that we have that wakes us up every day, all day? Something calls us back to God. Something calls us back to that connection. Something calls us where we don't stay busy and distracted in the world and just, pining away at the pace that the U.S. has us going. And I can tell you right now that pace does not exist in Ireland. The pace here is 5 times as fast as in Ireland. The second you just show up there, the pace is slower. And it's connected to the heartbeat. And the people tell stories. And there's music everywhere. And the people look in your eyes when they talk to you. And these people laugh all the time. It's happy at all costs. It's joy. It's sharing the miraculous. The bigger part of that country are Catholic. And so you'd hear them saying the prayers when the bells went off. But I went back and looked up how Charles Fillmore, who's the founder of Unity as a movement, had rewritten the Lord's Prayer, and he always said that it was actually about being affirmations, that we weren't supposed to be like doing this rote long prayer every time we were calling in to connect with God or this greater Creator, but that we should just take passages and pieces that you work with, because there's parts about forgiveness, there's parts about creating more abundance, there's parts about loss, and it's the little pieces that we needed to take at the different times, little prayers that we can actually really bring into our cell memory, into our bodies, so that we can actually bring about the kind of change that we would like to ask God to change, but we're actually just opening ourselves up that it's already in the midst of us. this change or this healing that we're seeking. So I reread his affirmations of the Lord's Prayer, and I actually wasn't that impressed by it, to be totally honest. So I had to rewrite it a little bit myself. So Charles and I wrote this, this prayer. The translation of the Lord's Prayer. He said it was a set of affirmations. Our Father in the heavens, your name must be being hallowed. Your kingdom must be being restored. Your will is being done both in heaven and upon the earth through us. Give us today the ideas for us to plant in our own consciousness, manifesting tomorrow's bread. And forgive us our faults as we learn to forgive those offending us. For your love leads us out of temptation and delivers us into the light. As in all matters where we seek divine help, we are free to use any words we choose, or no words at all. So this gives that free will piece. And that picture of the church, of the cathedral, is actually that cathedral. This was outside of one of our bed and breakfasts. You looked out and you could just hear it wafting all over. And this was a town called Cove. And it looked over the ocean. It's actually the last port that the Titanic stopped in and picked up 140 Irish people before it sank. And it has a couple ship, like really bad disaster stuff has come out of this particular port. It's a very beautiful place, but it's had some pretty sad stories that happen to do with ships. And we went on a journey, Mike and I, where we got to go on the actual place where the boat actually picked up the people, and they show you the pictures that you're actually standing on, like the different areas where they were, and you actually get a ticket that has the names of the people that boarded the boat there. And you do the whole thing where they show you, how the poor people lived versus the really rich people on the boat. And it's a very emotional process, and it's really, really well done. Ireland is very, very theatrical and also very aware of death and the process of that. In our culture, we like to hide and kind of avoid the fact that that's part of life. And where they celebrate it and they talk about it, it's a part of life. And so it's a pretty grim experience, but by the end, you're very overwhelmed with emotion. And then we get to look and find out if our person, that our ticket said we were, if we lived from that boat. And I actually lived, and so did my mom. But my father and my husband were goners. They didn't make it. So, but you know what, actually, if you look at the history, the women and children were the first priority to get them to safety. So anywho, when we first got to Dublin, it's a long trip. It's like 22 hours to get there. So you're traveling for a very long time, and we have a New York background, so we're very real people, and we always tell you that the truth about that. We're not like hiding that we can get a little bit fiery, and when nobody's had sleep for 22 hours, it's not the prettiest thing you want to witness. And so we get to Dublin, and they put you in a car that's driving on the other side, and the roads are half the size, and the walls are these brick walls. So at the speed you're going, you're either going to crush the car into the wall this way, or you're going to hit head on to cars this way, and you haven't slept for 20 hours, and you have to go find, this place that you're going to stay. And we showed up around 4 in the morning. The most wonderful miracle happened, because when we got to the car place, my dad discovered that his driver's license had been expired. So my husband had to do the driving. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. And didn't really help. It still was terrifying to take off of the place. We just kind of just as a roundabout for like 10 times around so we could figure out where the first, vein of where we were heading. And we got this GPS, which anybody's ever used a GPS. The first thing it asks is the address number. Well, in Ireland, apparently that's not important. There are no numbers to any building anywhere. So right there, the thing might as well have just been tossed out the window. All of our not work. We had actually, called Sprint and AT&T, but they completely didn't work, so we didn't have any GPS. And so this kind of like caused this, sense of adventure. We had to figure it out on our own again. We could not depend on our devices in any way, shape, or form. We actually went and got the paper map that I wish I had taken a picture of in the end that was like all ripped up because you actually really used this thing. And it was fun. It made you talk to the gas station attendants, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I know that bed and breakfast. That's so-and-so's aunt's daughter's so-and-so. Yeah, so this is, you go by this pub to this pub to this pub to this pub, and then it's there. And it was magic. So when we got to Cove, where that cathedral was, that cathedral sat way up on a mountain wall, and it was just above the city of Cove that was so pretty and so old with the cobblestone roads. And we went inside that church as a family, and there was all sorts of stations, with the Catholic churches, they have those candles that you can light for people. And there was stations all over the place, and so we all found our own spots, and I just went into this real sacred space of lighting candles for people in our church that are facing physical struggles. And we have a few of those right now, actually, that we're quite, in reverence of. And, our family members that are facing stuff. And it's just something about lighting those candles in that beautiful church. And there was this sense of holiness. We always talk that we don't need that outer image, that outer something to connect us with God. But there was something sacred about doing this act of lighting these candles for people that I'm worried about, that are on my mind, that are on my heart, that I'm concerned. I have a best friend that is really struggling with an illness right now, and very close people here too. But as I was lighting the candles, I had this kind of an out-of-body experience as I was in reverence of the spiritual wholeness of these people that I love so dearly. And something just took over where I just kind of went into this wormhole that just went back in time. I lifted out of this room, and I found myself at one of the depths of the hardest times of my entire life, where the last time I was in Ireland was 7 years ago, at the end of my marriage. And we went there to try to save our marriage. And, we know there's no place you're going to go that's going to breathe the wind back into a destructive relationship, which, he's wonderful, I'm wonderful, but we were not meant to do this entire life together. And this sense that I'm here now, like 7 years later, with my husband and my parents and the health that we have. And all this happened in 7 years. It was like I was just going, like it was tracks were showing me. It was like the tracks of like 7 years ago to here is like 150 lifetimes of miracle after miracle after miracle. And all it took was me to be brave enough to leave something that wasn't right. And trust me, I hung out for many, many years more than I needed to, but I learned a lot from that. So I get to the point where I'm in such a sense of love and gratitude, the amount of gratitude that is flushing my mind, body, and spirit. I am in a happy place like you can't imagine, and then all of a sudden I hear what's wrong? Are you okay? Oh my God, what's wrong with you? From my family, and I'm like, I didn't realize I am just sobbing standing at these candles. Because it was an altered, like a synchronistic, you've had that deja vu, you've seen it before, you've been there before. That's what this was. This was that altered experience. And so, out of that power, I was thinking of how travel does change how you perceive life. A lot of times we can get stuck in a rut and we just stay where we are because we become, I always hear this from people, well, I've just become so accustomed to my home. I like my little coffee shop. I like my little life, the way it goes. And, and yet you don't realize that it really does, you do have to push yourself to do things that you haven't done before. You do have to go and sit on planes for 20 hours. It's not fun. But it's those moments where you have that aha moment of clarity of, oh, that's what's being called of my life. Somehow when we get out of our pattern, our habitual patterns of thought, the mind chatter, the monkey chatter, the disappointments, the things that are keeping us from the power that we are, sometimes we have to shift things and change the landscape to be able to look anew. And I read this quote, and I thought this is really neat. You will find spiritual experiences, epiphanies of the heart, when you're not expecting them. When you are in an unfamiliar place, you are awake and sensitive to everything around you, the smells and the sounds. There's nothing that helps us grow spiritually like travel and nature. I really do agree with that. I don't go probably 2 days without going into nature. I'm a very outdoorsy person by nature, and we do live in the most beautiful place on the planet. So it's not hard to access, animal totems like bald eagles that just happen to be right outside of our town. I mean, there's mountain lions everywhere. Today on our property, they were having to get a mountain lion off our property before you all came to church. We have our deer. It's just magic, right? And when you visit a place like Ireland, it's just neat to see a totally different landscape. It's not better than here. It's just different, and it smells different, and the people are different. And I took this picture for my kids of us, for them to get the mystery, and I wrote something like, we are walking with the leprechauns right now. And Kathy goes, did you really see one? And I was like, I heard them, and I felt them touch my ankles. And she was just so excited, and it's like, you drive down roads that these trees are going like this for miles over it with the green ivy, and it's all these tunnels. And it's like what your little kid imagination makes up of fairy tale books that have been drawn, and they've been drawn from this country. This country is so picturesque, it brings you back to why we're here. What are we here to do and be? Is to discover, is to adventure, is to find God everywhere, to remember that God's everywhere in every moment. And if it doesn't feel like it's there, then something has gone very wrong. Your intellect has taken over, and the heart connection is not beating. It's that heart that wakes up when we go on adventures. So there was a game that we used to play in YOU. That's the Youth of Unity in this church at 14. It's the 14-year-olds to 18-year-olds. And these are like kind of the games that would help the kids open up and tell the truth about themselves. Because, the teenage years is a really hard time for they're teens. They're not kids anymore, and they're not adults anymore, but they're trying to figure out who they are. And it's a tough time for a lot of kids. And to have a youth group to be a part of when you're in high school is such a powerful thing, because you get to be really vulnerable and honest. And one of the games that we played to open up that vulnerability so we could tell the truth, we go around in a circle, and each person had to say this and give an answer to it 10 times. And it was, if you really knew me, you would know this about me. And then you'd have to share something. If you really knew me, you would have to know, you'd know this about me, right? And so what it does is it causes you to tell the truth. But what you're really doing is you're actually discovering who you are in your teenage years, right? You really don't know who you are. But then all of a sudden you realize, if you really knew me, you'd know that I really love animals. Like you get all of a sudden, because you've always been the doer and the isness, and that's the time where we're starting to self-reflect. What is it that I really love? And we all do this. We go through different phases. Every 10 years, we all start to, we go into that inner reflection to find what it is that really gets us going still. What is it that gets us out of bed? What is it that don't? And that's what this trip was like. It was like, laughter. My parents were sitting in the back seat. It was like the roles have completely changed. Mike and I are in the front. Mom and Dad are in the back, having all the time in the world to read and do whatever, whereas Mike and I are kind of like bickering because I'm like, you're too close to the wall, you're too close to the wall, and he's like, well, I'm going to get hit by the car on this side, and they're just like totally chill, man, reading the newspapers, and unfortunately, in the end, as human beings, that we always really will try to save ourselves over others. And this was true in that car, okay? So he was always so close to that wall. I mean, you're hearing the leaves hitting the wall of the car. I mean, this is like a little much, and you don't know how far the brick wall is. What?
I was not that close to the wall.
God bless it. He was that close to the wall. I know that he was really thinking of my protection, but I do understand when you're driving on this side and you've got all the cars coming at you, it is totally against your nature to want to be near the line. It's scary. It takes a little bit to get used to. I don't know, maybe you don't get used to it. So I wanted to share this. This is written by one of the most famous Unity ministers in one of my favorite Unity books called Discovering the Power Within You. And he's talking about prayer and how we bring that and what prayer really is in Unity. And he says it this way. If the repetition of saying the same prayer over and over again in effort to condition your mind with the thoughts of God, then it is good. However, if you parrot a prayer or affirmation over and over with the idea of conditioning God to your needs, then it is in vain. Nowhere in Christian practice has Jesus' clear instruction been so disregarded as in this matter of prayer repetition. If you owned a mountain cabin and wanted to make it fresh and habitable after a long winter, would you have to induce the air to enter the doors or plead with the light to stream in the windows? No, the moment you open the doors and windows, the wind and sunshine would surge in of their own accord. This is a good picture of God's relation to our lives. Prayer is simply opening our lives that we may receive what God has always been trying to bestow, conditioning our lives with God. Khalil Gibran says, "For what is prayer but the expansion of yourself into the living ether?" For what is prayer but the expansion of yourself into the living ether? How many people have heard of the living ether? So it's referred to in Unity, and it's also referred to a lot by Edgar Cayce, who's one of the greatest documented psychics that talks about the veil between life after death and the whole process of how our life is really, it's about a schooling. And sometimes in a lifetime our soul grows, and sometimes in a lifetime our soul goes backwards. And so it's a matter of expanding into this living ether, connecting with this cosmic realm that guides and directs everything. And when we live from that, we can actually live a miracle existence every day, all day. And so I want to read the metaphysical meaning of ether, which is the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary is written by Charles Fillmore, and pretty much any word in the Bible you can look it up and find what it metaphysically means. But this is what ether means. Ether, the spiritual substance in which we live, move, and have our being, and out of which can be made whatever we desire. Some scientists teach that space is heavily charged with energies that would transform the earth if they could be controlled. One with spiritual understanding knows that the ether exists as an emanation of mind and should not be confused in its limitations with matter. Its being is governed and sustained by ideas, and ideas have no physical dimensions. Limitations with matter. It's being and governed and sustained by ideas. Okay, so the idea place, that's where we have to come up with that. The ideas, right? In our meditation, in our prayers, we will be given ideas. You'll have those aha moments in dreams, and you wake up and you didn't write it down, and then later you're like, what was that in that dream? Right? We have that happen all the time. We get distracted that the universe is always trying to nudge us and get us into a direction where we need to be getting into that divine order, and yet we got to be on it. We have to have books by our bed. We have to have an ability that when something is said, you get that like idea, you write it down, and you start holding it in consciousness. You might not know what it means, but as you hold that idea in your head, it plants a seed. And it plants a seed in your consciousness, and as you pray and you meditate, the clarity of how to bring about this idea will become an outpicturing where then it can also become a financial gain. It can also become a lover coming into your life. It can be whatever it is that you're desiring in your life that you want to bring, but it starts in the idea place. And then as you meditate, that spiritual ether, it's that spiritual energy surrounds that idea, and it deeply, deeply cultivates and marinates that in your soul. And then your soul, from all its many lifetimes, knowledge of how to bring this about, and the parts of us will start appearing to show us what is being called of this idea. So, all of us had our epiphanies, and all of us had our magical moments in Ireland, but there was one that we all had together. And it was literally a moment in time that you could never recreate, and we could never prove or even figure out what actually happened. But this is actually inside of the Catholic Church that I did the candles in. This is in the wrong spot. It's, you know that Mercury went into retrograde today, and it showed everywhere. And every single machine that we're doing, my slides are all like out of sorts. It's like, okay, this is fun. I'm on like a leading, I'm like, you know, this is just telling me where we're gonna go. There's my parents and my husband and I. Those are supposed to be later in the talk, but that's okay. So we were at this restaurant, and this was in a town called Bunratty, and we were having lunch there, and then we were moving on to another town to find our bed and breakfast. And there's a big castle on the other side of it, and we did go and tour it, had this great lunch, and then we headed off in the car, which we had this little car. It was called a Skoda, and it was a strange little car, and it really didn't work well, but we got home alive, so that's all that matters. Anywho, we left this restaurant, and we got on the highway, and we went about 30 to 50 kilometers down the highway. And then we turned off, because that was to take us into the town that we were going to stay and find our bed and breakfast, which was always a big adventure, because again, there weren't numbers on these buildings, so it was always a major, like, hours of, you know, adventure. We drove off the exit, and we're seeing a castle, and Mike goes, oh, I wonder if this one is as busy as the last castle. And we're all staring at this castle, and it's the exact place we just left. I'm not even kidding, though. And we had been on the road for like 40 minutes. And we got off, and he's like, slowly, his eyes. What the? I won't fill in the rest. And I watched Mike, and for me, it was so blew my mind, and it blew my parents' mind, but this kind of stuff happens to our family all the time on road trips. We've always been big outdoorsy, road trippy people. We expect crazy stuff like this, but Mike, he's a logical guy. Everything can be, you know, broken down. So his face, I haven't laughed that hard in so long. Our whole family's just roaring in laughter just because his reaction, he wasn't having fun with it. This was too weird, right? Like, this was such an exciting, fun thing, but for him, it was just, it has to be explained. And somehow, we entered some sort of wormhole. We defied time and space, and it was a wonderful memory that we'll never, ever forget. And so it gets me to think about my favorite quote from the Bible, which I think I pretty much use every single Sunday, because if you really knew me, I'm going to do the while you thing. If you really knew me, you would know that I'm a really big kid. That's the truth. There is no adult in this human being, okay? This is play at all costs. It is fun at all costs. It's research fun. It's work to play. Work as little as possible. It's play with the kids. Let's go do something. I'm like the little kid that everybody wakes, you know, when your children wake up like, what are we doing today? And you're like so disappointed, like, oh, we're going to the office again. I'm still wake up with, I can't wait to see what this day is going to bring. So I love this Bible quote, because that's what this experience was about. Matthew 18:2-4 says, Jesus called a little child to stand among them. Truly I tell you, he said, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus called a little child to stand among them. Truly, I tell you, he said, unless you change and become like little children. And that just means that we have to open up our eyes to a new perspective, to a fresh perspective, not from a tired perspective. We all go through those times, you know, that emotional moment of going to 7 years ago at the end of my marriage, my life was so bleak and dark at that time. I had no hope. I was mad at God, literally. I just didn't know why I was going to have to raise these kids without him, you know, that we weren't going to be able to find this love and compassion. And yet, that was being called also. I had to face my fears to love myself enough to say, I'm not going to be in an abusive relationship. And once I made that decision, I chose me. And when you choose you, you're choosing God. When we're letting ourselves down and we're living out of the limitation and the lack thoughts about who we are and what we deserve and what we're going to create, then we're living in a life that has no ether, no magic, and it's constantly reminding you that your life is bleak. When you face yourself and you recognize how wonderful and how beautiful you are and how deserving you are, then you'll start to look through those childlike lenses, those rose-colored glasses, you know. We won't see the things of the world. We'll start to see the things of the heart. And that's how I see it, you guys. I love you. We'll take an offering for Unity now, but I want to invite a friend up real quick. She's going to talk. I'm going to get you a microphone. Hold on. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, my name is Holly Wheeler, and I'm just like you. I'm just like you. I love this state. I've been here for, I don't have any idea how many years at this point. It seems like millenniums. And I'm here to tell you that we have a very dire SOS emergency that is happening in the state on this fracking issue. We have 1 week to gather 20,000 signatures. And we need signature gatherers like you can't imagine. The oil and gas are coming in now. They're stealing boxes of petitions. They're creating harassment. And they just bought off a lot of our signature gatherers. So it's up to us, we the people. So I'm going to be standing outside afterwards collecting people who have time to give, because this week is going to make or break what happens to the future of this incredible state that we all love so much. That beautiful place where you're going on retreat. Colorado is going to be unfit to live with what is happening and the pollution that is coming across. 1,400 wells are going in between here and Longmont, 3 of them next to the Boulder Reservoir, if we don't get this ballot on. So if you have any time this week to become a signature gatherer, to be able to collect signatures, we need 20,000 of them, and we're actually paying people. You could earn $700 to $1,000 this week to help. I am running on fumes if I don't sound too coherent, and but I invite you, and we'll be outside. So thank you so very much. We need to do this together.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's take our, thank you. So let's take our offerings in our hands and bless it with this offering statement. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give. Together, please. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give. And thank you, God. And here we have 4 wins. What's your names? What is it? Fourth World. Okay, let's have a warm welcome again. So this is the time in the service we want to recognize anybody that's visiting us for the first time. We have ushers that will bring a gift for you and information about stuff. You just have to put your hand up and be brave enough to put your hand in the air, and they will bring you a gift. And then make sure you come over to the fellowship hall, and I'll be over there, and we'd like to meet you and have food and fellowship. So here you go. And welcome. We're happy to have you here. We hope you enjoyed your visit. And now we're going to invite our kiddos up, and we're going to sing Let There Be Peace on Earth. And let's all rise.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let me walk with my family in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous song. Take each moment I live, each moment of peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And living the hero's journey is about loving yourself and accepting yourself.